everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. I'm here with another weekly wrap up. I have about 8 books, I believe, to talk about. So let's go ahead and quickly dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so I'm going to get started real quickly, just dive into these reads that I had this week because I'm honestly trying to film this right before our live show for our buddy read. So by the time this goes up tomorrow, that will have aired. So if you want to check that out, make sure you go over to Bestie Book Reviews channel because I'm going to have lots of thoughts on our buddy read, and I might be the unpopular opinion. I'm pretty nervous to see what they thought. So anyways, make sure to check that out if you're interested in our thoughts on Undeniable, which was our read for this month by Daisy Jane. So anyways, let's get started with my weekly reads. The first one that I read was a real quick one. My goal is to do the ACOTAR series and annotate them and everything. So I had never finished it. So I finished the Court of Frost and Starlight. This is just a quick novella. It's basically 3.5 in the ACOTAR series. And I did annotate it. So I have like my little thing in the beginning here. Sorry, I can't see on the camera if you can see that, but I annotated it and everything. So I loved it. I was honestly surprised to see so many like negative reviews on Goodreads about how it had no plot. There was really nothing into this, blah, blah, blah. But like, I wasn't expecting a lot of plot and stuff for a novella. I felt like it was really a good bridge to getting to Nesta and Cassian's book. Because, you know, we're wrapping up the big battle. You know, the last 3 books were about Feyre and Rhysand. And, you know, they have their happily ever after. So much has gone down. So I thought it was kind of like a good recap. Also bridging the gap of like what's going to go on. Who's the new bad? You don't really know in this, but it's hinting at things. So I thought it was perfect because it was nice to see Feyre and Rhysand like happily together. You know, they've been happy, you know, been solid, but it was good to see them without having this big, you know, battle or these big things happening, just to see them in their day-to-day as, you know, amazing couple. They're one of my favorite couples. Rhysand is still swoon-worthy in this. I just love him so much. Most of my things are like the purple ones are all Rhysand. I even have like a tab that's just for Feyre darling. So anyways, I loved it. I think it was really like, I loved seeing the inner circle together. Seeing Amren is always so freaking hilarious, and I love how she thinks, and I feel like she's gonna have an interesting connection to Nesta. And honestly, like, I know a lot of people like hate on Nesta, but I really connect to her character. And it was really sad to see where she's at after everything that went on in the first 3 books, to see that she's really in a deep depression. She's like secluded herself in this like rundown house away from their inner circle. She doesn't want anything to do with them. You know, so I am so excited to get to Nesta's book, which I'm going to be reading soon here. And because I got to start annotating it. And it's also a perfect time for me because it is the Romantasy readathon that Crystal's putting on. So I'm finally going to finish this series, which was my goal for this year. But I thought this was great. I think it had some good spice in it between, you know, Feyre and Rhysand, just seeing them happy, seeing Cassian. You're getting more point of views in this too, which I thought was really interesting. So I gave this 5 stars. I think I gave it like 2.5 chilies. I just really enjoyed it, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with Nesta, because I think she's such a complex heroine. Like, there's so many layers to her that I find her so fascinating. And so I think I do love a prickly heroine that's written well, and Sarah J. Maas writes Nesta so well that I'm just so curious about her and Cassian. So 5 stars, really enjoyed it, and can't wait to get to Nesta. Okay, so then the next one I have was actually, I completed the series that I was talking about last week. I did get the ALC for the complete collection for Redemption Hills. So this is book number 4, and this one was Promise Me Always. So what's really cool about this collection is it's like about over 40 hours of audiobook. So it's all 4 books in one collection. So on Audible, you could use like 1 credit and get all 4 of the audiobooks. So that's an excellent. I would highly recommend them. So anyways, this one is the 4th and final book in that series. And this is between Milo and Tessa. And I was so excited that Tessa got a book because she was kind of a scene stealer in the previous book. She's like best friends to the heroine. I think it was Eden from the first book. And she was just, I loved her. She's such this ray of sunshine, bubbly, funny, flirty, like just the life of the party kind of girl. And I just loved her. So I was excited to get her book because through the other book, she was with this horrible man, her boyfriend. At even one point, I can't remember which heroine it was, but I don't know if it was Salem. Anyways, one of the heroines, like her boyfriend tries to like dance with her and flirt with her, like right in front of her. And like it was, and she still stayed with him. So I was like, how is this strong, independent, beautiful, like very confident woman with this loser? So you knew there was something more to the picture. And so I was very interested to see what that was. So in this, we kind of open up with her having altercation with that boyfriend. I believe he like hits her and she kind of runs off into the night, like, and they break up and everything. And she goes off in the night and Milo kind of finds her and helps her out. Milo is the bouncer and like best friend at Trent's club, and he's like good friends with them. And he's been kind of crushing on her for a while. She's been crushing on him, but you know, she was in this like kind of relationship she was forced to stay in. And so he ends up kind of like taking her back to his place because she didn't have anywhere to go. She lived with the boyfriend. And she kind of finds out about his situation, and he is a single dad. He lost his wife. His wife died tragically, and he really lost it after that and kind of lost custody to his kids. He had 2 kids with her, and her parents have the children, and he's barely able to get any time with them, and he really wants to win custody. So like that's what he's been trying to do. So she really feels for him, and she's just such a giver that they end up coming to term like an agreement to do like this fake engagement so that like seeing him steady with like a mother figure and all of that would really help him win his case. And then she ends up staying with him and living with him and everything. But Milo has a very dark past. He kind of had ties to kind of a mafia guy. He used to fight for him, and you know, things went bad with that, and it could have had something to do with like what happened to his wife. And so he's very nervous about getting involved with her. He feels kind of guilty because he hasn't been with anybody since his wife, who he really loved. But they have such an insane connection. And, you know, she's just so wonderful. So, and you do find out why she was with the boyfriend and all of that. I'm not going to go into it, but his past is going to come kind of to haunt them. So there is a suspense element. A.L. Jackson usually does have some type of suspense element, and it's like in each of these books. But I love this. This might be like my favorite out of the series. I really love the first one too, but I just love Tessa so much. She's like one of my favorite A.L. Jackson heroines so far, and I just loved her. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. This was narrated by Connor Craze and Samantha Brentmore. I love Connor Craze. He's phenomenal. And I don't think I've ever listened to Samantha Brentmore, but she did such a good job bringing Tessa's character, like her vibrant personality, her flirtiness. She did an amazing job. So fantastic job. I gotta say, like, I don't know if I'd be into A.L. Jackson's books if I'm reading them physically. It's a lot of like beautiful prose and kind of this run on, you know, kind of thing that's very lyrical. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get into it if you're reading it physically, but it comes out really perfect in an audiobook. So I think if you want to give her a try, if you didn't really like reading her physically, I would definitely recommend getting an audiobook because she has amazing audiobooks. Anyways, so then I read a novella for the readathon. This was Briarley by Aster Gray, and this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but this is an romance. It is set in World War II time, and it's kind of interesting because you don't even get to know their names till like middle of the book or the novella. But this was really, I don't know, it's so hard to explain because it did have very historical romance vibes. It was, and it was very like this slow, like moving kind of novella. There's literally no spice in this, so don't expect spice. I didn't mind that at all. I actually really enjoyed it. We have Edward, which you find his name way later, and he's basically it's during World War II. He's had like a bad injury, so his knees kind of messed up. He has a daughter, and he actually ends up trying to get her a rose when he was out one day, when he was traveling for whatever. And he it's kind of getting really foggy and crazy, and leads him to this like mansion kind of area, Gothic looking. And they have all these beautiful roses, and nobody was there. So he ends up picking it, and then for his daughter, and then this dragon comes for him. So our Beauty and the Beast, it's dragon too. So he's part, like, it's kind of humanoid with dragon features and dragon wings and stuff. But he fully has like a dragon face. So it's interesting. So he ends up taking him and keeping him there. And, he learns about the curse and how this guy has been, and his servants are like, you can't see them, they're invisible. And he feels very like bad for these servants. And, the guy is really grumpy. Briarley is the dragon. And he's pretty knows like it's coming soon, that it's going to be the end of them. It's like the 100 years has passed. And so like this guy ends up staying there trying to find a way for him. He goes to have love, even if it's like maybe not with a woman. He's like turned away a couple women and stuff. And he even says like, I would never be able to love them or whatever. And so he kind of comes to a conclusion that like he may be into men. So then they kind of build this friendship and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very like slow going. But I found it interesting. I did like it. I thought it was moving in certain parts and stuff. It just didn't fully grab my attention, but I did end up giving it 4 stars. I was annoyed because it ends so abruptly and there's not really an epilogue, and I wanted a little bit more of them because when they're finally kind of coming together, it's like the end and then it's over. And I was just like, I wanted more. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then there's like no chilies in this. They share like a couple kisses and like that's it. So okay, so then I had an ALC. I am on Brooke Montgomery's ALC team. So I really wanted to get to this book when it came out. But like, since I decided I want her ALCs, I don't get her arcs anymore, which is completely understandable. Like, if you get an arc, like, and she's giving you an ALC, she wants you to stick with the ALC because she has limited spots available. So I had to wait for this one. If you followed me, you've seen me talk about the Sugarland Creek series. I freaking love it. The last book was a little iffy for me. It wasn't my favorite. I had a lot of issues with it, but I was really excited for this one. So this was, Only With Me is the name. And this is the 4th book in the Sugarland Creek series. We have, I believe, one more coming. And I think that's coming in 2025. So I'm excited for that. So there's twins in this family. This is a Southern, cowboy kind of small town series. And I just love this family. And so this is one of the twins. So this is Waylon, and the other twin is Wilder. And Waylon hasn't been in a relationship for a while. He's very in a tough spot because Wilder is out of control. He's puts himself at risk a lot. He suffers and struggles with mental health. So there is a lot of trigger warnings in this, and she does warn you at the beginning because it starts off with something that's on page. She says you can skip it, but just know that's the issue. What I really appreciated with this was that even though it's an audiobook, she put those trigger warnings at the beginning of the audiobook. You see a lot of audiobooks where they don't do that. And so I really appreciate that because this does tackle a lot of emotional and triggering type of things. So I will go through, I think I listed them here. Oh, I forgot to put my trigger warnings here, but I'll bring them up at the end. So he has been kind of like his brother's keeper. So he's basically kind of not really been able to be in a relationship. He wasn't in a relationship with this one woman, but like they both had like family like trauma and stuff to deal with. So they kind of just ended it. So this is a romance between him and Harlow. And Harlow actually is his ex's little sister. So the way this starts out is they actually both are, he decides to join this like horse group. It's like kind of anonymous chat group where they ask for advice, all that kind of stuff. And he joins this and starts to like help Harlow through it, not knowing who she is. And like they end up really connecting. And so there's like also an option to like just chat privately. So they're privately chatting all the time. And so they really build a connection and they want to meet. And so they end up setting the meetup, and he goes there and he sees it's his ex's little sister. So he's like, I can't go there. There's no way I could do this. So he ends up just like ghosting her. So she was really upset by that. And she ends up joining this like dating app. And she's, you know, a virgin. She's been through a lot of trauma. She was attacked and brutally like injured and went through a lot of trauma, with like her father and stuff. He was also injured. And so she's got an ailing father in this too, who also suffers from depression and stuff. So there's a lot of heavy stuff in this. So just be aware. So she's really never been able to be in like a relationship and experience things. So when she does this dating app, Waylon finds her on it. And so he kind of reaches out to her as Waylon, and they start connecting. And it leads to kind of like a teach me like lessons in seduction type of thing, which I always love. And let me tell you, this was hot. So like what I loved about her is she's like not that virginal, like, oh, I'm so clueless kind of heroine. Like she's a virgin. She knows she needs to like learn up on this. And she asks for what she wants from Waylon. So like he teaches her how to get herself off. One of the hottest scenes was like she wanted to watch him pleasure himself and masturbate. So like he literally like they're FaceTiming and he shows her and he's dirty talking. This man's dirty talk was on point. And to mention, this was an ALC. So this was narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Ava Erickson. And Teddy Hamilton, dirty talking in my ear is the best. Like the dirty talk on this was so hot. Like Teddy Hamilton is king at that, like king. So I think that made this so much hotter for me than even if I was reading it. Because sometimes I always get kind of bored with like masturbation scenes or something, or if they're fantasizing about somebody, I'm always like, ugh, I like skim those. But Teddy Hamilton doing it in the scene and her like talking to him and him explaining what he's doing, what he likes, it was freaking hot. So anyways, they're building that connection and doing this stuff, kind of fooling around, and it's going to lead to places. And, you know, of course, it's like his ex's little sister and all of that. There's a lot of stuff going on with Wilder. And so I'm really interested to see how Wilder's book is going to go. I feel like it's going to be even more emotional than this one was. But obviously we have a mistaken kind of like hidden identity in this, because she has no idea while she's doing this stuff with him that he was the guy she really connected to that ghosted her. So obviously that's going to come out, but I think it was handled well and there's not too much conflict over it. I just really had a great time with this, and I thought it hit some really emotional stuff. There's some suspense elements that come into play at the end that was exciting, but it was such a great audiobook. I loved it. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3.5 chilies. Yeah, Teddy Hamilton was amazing. Now the trigger warnings, these might give things away, so you might want to skip to the next book, but there is, you know, self-harm, cutting, depression, thoughts of, you know, suicide, those type of things, like very, there's a physical attack, you know, there's violence, you know, dealing with a parent that is depressed and has issues. So there's a lot of heavy stuff in this. So just make sure you check your triggers, and Brooke does an amazing job of bringing those up at the beginning too. So anyways, I loved it. Okay, so then I got to one of my most anticipated releases of December and this year when I heard about it earlier in the year, and that is See It Through by Julia Wolf. If you follow me, you know I freaking love Julia Wolf. I think I've only not liked like maybe 1 or 2 books, and that was like early on in like when I started reading her books. And so, I mean, I've just loved everyone. I don't think like her recent ones have been below a 5-star. So I just highly recommend Julia Wolf. And I was so excited for this one because this is going to be a 2nd generation series. And it's actually going to be the kids of my favorite couple from Sweet Like Poison, and that is Elena and Lachlan. They were amazing, and if you haven't read Sweet Like Poison, I kind of recommend reading that whole series first, like even the high school to the college one, because Elena is like starts out as a villain, and then she has like this turnaround, but she's still a feisty bitch. So I love seeing her like find her happily ever after and finding out more about her. But anyways, this is Elena and Lachlan. And Lachlan, you know, his family owned this ranch. And so this series is going to be at the Kelly Ranch. This is Kelly Ranch, the first book in it. And so this is going to be their kids. So I really, really was excited for this. And it was worth the wait. It was fantastic. So this is between Remington and Hannah. And Remy has actually returned to town. He used to be best friends with her brother. And he was very like taken in by the Kelly family when he was younger. His father was a big drunk and not a good father. He has no relationship with his father. And he's returned to town because his dad has died. And so he's come to kind of like sell his house and get rid of his shit and then leave. So he basically bounced out of that town, I think when he was 18 or something, as soon as he could. And he kind of ghosted her brother. So like that really upset her brother and like their family and her. But she really has a bad opinion of Remy because she actually had an amazing relationship with his father because his father turned shit around when he left. And he was like a mentor to her. She kind of like worked with him in his business. She was a farrier, and he really showed her the trade and helped her where she was very close to him. And he was dying slowly of like cancer and everything. And she tried so hard to reach out to his son Remy to get him there before he died, and he didn't show up. And there is reasons why he didn't show up. So, but she doesn't know that. So she's very negative towards him. And he shows up at the house and doesn't realize that his father had basically given her like ownership of half of the house and like the business and stuff. So he's like kind of not going to be able to just get out of there quickly. He was like this photojournalist. And so he was like filming things and photographing and like traveling all over the world and like war-torn countries and stuff. So he's seen a lot of trauma. He is recovering from something. That's kind of maybe why, you know, he wasn't there. But so like now they're kind of in this forced proximity thing because she does her business out of that house and they just have a great connection. And so once she kind of learns, and she quickly does, what really happened and why he didn't show up, and they like it turns around. It turns the corner for sure. But she's worried about falling in love with him and him just leaving because he hasn't stayed there. He has this career, but he's really taking the time to heal and he's not ready to get back to it. So they have all these amazing moments together. Julia Wolf just really is good at building like this slow connection and beautiful like development between them. I just love her writing. And I loved the family. They like immediately took him back in. Like the brother forgave him really quickly. And I thought that was just amazing. And just seeing Elena and Locke again as parents was great. I wanted more of them, but honestly, I think she did a good job because it wasn't, you don't want that too much of them in it. We want to focus on this couple. So I'm very excited for this series to get to see all their kids. It's just going to be fantastic. There is a suspense element, but it's brought up through the whole book. So there is that in the background too. So somebody's kind of threatening her and maybe kind of stalking her. So there's stuff going on there. So I really loved this. I gave it 5 stars, no doubt, no confusion there. I knew I would. I really loved it. So I gave it 5 stars and 3 chilies. And there is trigger warnings for PTSD, death of a parent, violence, and then the stalker stuff gets pretty intense. So fantastic. Love it. Can't wait for this series. Okay, so then I listened to an audiobook. I listened to River of Shadows by Karina, Halle, and this is the first book in the Underworld God series. I didn't know that it wasn't a standalone when I went in, so that's my problem. So that was kind of annoyed me when I got to the end, because we do have like a cliffhanger and to continue on. This book is actually available on Audible Plus, so if you have that, you can listen to it. I was annoyed because only the first one is, and then the other ones are not. So that's how they get you to, so you can continue the series. But I listened to this because for the readathon, and I did it for the Death and the Maiden trope. And this is definitely very interesting. I thought it had really good world building. I did, get frustrated that it was just the first book. So, but that's a me problem. I probably should have looked into that. But what we have in this is Death, or Tuwani. He's like the god of death. And Hana. And Hana is actually just heard her father supposedly died. She goes out to Finland to go to his funeral, but his body is not there, and there's some weird shit going down. And she meets his kind of like apprentice. She finds out that he is not dead, and that he had actually traveled to the realm of the dead to kind of barter to try and extend his life, because I think he might have had cancer or something. I think it was cancer. So he was trying to barter for a longer life and to continue living. I can't talk. And then death actually captures him and keeps him there. So his apprentice, I'm trying to remember his name, Rasmus, ends up taking her to the realm of the dead so that they can go try and get her father back. And it's a very interesting journey. Things kind of go off the rails a little bit. There's all these interesting kind of monsters and things in the underworld type of situation here. This is very like Hades and Persephone's vibes too. And then once she finally gets to death, she's gonna have to give herself up, trade herself up for her father. And so she does do that. Her father did not want her coming, did not want her to do that. I have some weird suspicions about Rasmus, like what his, what he's really up to and his motives are. But she ends up going with death, and she's kind of forced to be with him. Things get pretty spicy with them, but I didn't fully feel their connection yet. It was just some good spicy times. And then we leave it on a cliffhanger. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think it was okay. I'm not a huge Karina Halle. I've read some of her stuff and it doesn't always hit for me, but I definitely like this one more than when I tried Black Sunshine or whatever. I did not like that. I like this a lot more. Death was very interesting. I wanted it to be a little darker, but it did have some good dark gothic vibes to it. So I definitely do want to continue with the series, but some of her actions in this really irritated me, and what she decides to do at the end of this book pissed me off. So that's kind of why I went down to the 4 stars. But again, if you go in prepared knowing it's not a standalone, it's a series, I think you'll enjoy it. So anyways, 4 stars, 2.5 chilies. Okay, so I don't know if I want to fully go into my rant here, but then I read the buddy read that we have, and that is Undeniable by Daisy Jane. I was really excited for this because based off the trope, it's something that I love, and that is, mother's ex-boyfriend type of thing. I love that. So I know Daisy Jane writes a lot of taboo, kinky, good smutty books, and so I was really excited for this. It seemed like it was going to be a fun read, and it really let me down. And I can't even go into why I hated it without spoiling it for everybody. But basically this is between Callan and Lexi. And Lexi has a horrible upbringing. She basically had to raise her brother. Her mother's like a drug addict and like uses men and like never took care of them. She'll like abandon them for large periods of time. So Lexi basically kind of had to raise her brother, and they have a very close, beautiful relationship. But Callan actually dated her mom. He wasn't really that into her. But once he met her kids and saw this bad situation they were living in, he just fell for these kids. And that was one of my issues too, was like, he didn't come into it when she's older. He came in when she was 4 years old. So this guy like gave her baths, fed her, took care of her, looked at her like a daughter figure. And then we're going to have a romance between them. It just felt a little icky. I was willing to bypass that issue though and just be okay with it, but there was a big issue at the end of this book. So what ends up happening is the mom bounces. He was ready to like propose and marry her so that he could take care of these kids, and she just leaves, and he never was able to find them again. And so now her mom is going back to that town for a job and a certain doctor and things that she's doing. And so they're back in that town. Lexi is 18. But she actually is, it's like her last year, it would be her last year of high school, but she didn't really get to go. She has to work full time. And then she's trying to get her GED on her own, and her brother's going to school. She's helped paying for that. So it's like she's basically the mother figure. She takes care of him. And so she's working at this bowling alley, and Callan has this like music shop right next door. And so his MC, he's part of an MC. But it did not feel like an MC. That was another one of my complaints. Like, I watched Sons of Anarchy. I read a lot of MC romance. This did not seem like an MC. Like, I just had issues with it. But I'm not going to go into it. Anyways, he goes over there with MC a lot to, like, the bar area and, like, the pool tables and stuff. And so he ends up seeing her and instantly knows it's her, and his dick is hard for her. Like, instantly. So there was no like slow build or fighting feelings. Like, they get it on pretty quickly, and she's like a virgin, and he like is going to give her a ride or whatever on his bike. And then it like escalates so quickly where he's taking off her pants and goes down on her like out in the alley on his bike. And it just was like so unbelievable to me. And then he basically is stepping in, want to be with her and take care of her brother. And so I just had a lot of issues with this. I thought it was okay. I was going to give it like a 4 stars, being generous through most of this book. But at the 70% mark, I'm going to put up spoilers here. And watch our live show if you want to hear me rant, because I'll probably go into it more there. And I have a feeling they're going to love this book, and I'm going to be the minority. But they killed off a character at like the 70% mark. It was already boring with like no plot, no angst. Like, they're already together. It's just a lot of sex scenes. And then they literally kill off a character that meant so much to me in the book. And that was her brother. They literally killed him off in like a traumatic way. And there was on-page death, like, of the nurse, like, or doctor, like, straddling him, doing CPR, trying to bring him back to life. We get to see that in like Callan sees that. And it was just like, fuck you for doing that. Like, it didn't add to the story. It was unnecessary. And then after that, we get a flashback to see another situation of her like helping him as kids with a bully. And like, now this kid who was 14, finally in a good situation in his home life, is like killed off in a tragic way. And I just felt like it was emotional manipulation and trying to throw trauma out there. And I did not see any trigger warnings for this. I may be wrong, but I didn't see any trigger warnings. I came in for a mother's ex taboo romance. I don't want that in that type of romance. And so I was pissed. I was basically skimming the end of this. So anyways, I was skimming the end after this tragic event happens. I didn't really care. I didn't fully buy into their relationship. They were instantly together. So this was not great for me. Not to say I won't read her other books, because this was my first book from her, and I just think it was probably the wrong book for me. I'm sure a lot of her other books are really good. I've heard great things, so I will give her another go. This one just was a lot of like underhanded, like trying to throw trauma at you to get you to be emotional at the end, and it just pissed me off. So I ended up giving this 2.5 stars, 3 chilies. I wanted to DNF it like at the 70%, but I was like, I'm already here, so I might as well continue. Yeah, so anyways, check out our live show on the Bestie Book Reviews channel if you want to see all our thoughts on that book. Okay, so then my last book is From Blood and Ash, and this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I read this because it was a series that was one of Crystal's favorites, so I want to hit that on the bingo board. And it's been on my TBR forever. This is the Blood and Ash series. This is the first book, and this is between Hawk and Poppy. And this was very interesting. I think it had good world building, but there was still so much that like I didn't know. So maybe she's going to go into depth into in the other books. But I'm just going to give you the basic setup. I might be bad at explaining this because I don't read a ton of fantasy. And sometimes it's harder to explain fantasy for me. But in this, we have this land, and there's these rulers, and they are the Ascended. And they basically like don't really age. You have to go through an ascension to be an Ascended. Certain people are Ascended, and I think they don't really age. They look pretty good. They live a longer amount of time. And then we have Poppy, and she's actually the maiden, and she's like the chosen one. Her family was attacked by a Craven, which is kind of like a werewolf form type of thing. And, you know, she survived that attack, so she's considered like the chosen. She does have some powers. So she seems kind of like an empath. She can feel people's emotions and help them, by altering their emotions a little bit. But Poppy, since she is this maiden, lives in a gilded cage type of thing. She's very protected, doesn't get to do anything. I really love some of these side characters. We had Victor, and he was like her protector and everything, but he also trained her privately. Like it was a secret because she's not supposed to be trained. So she's been trained really well by Victor to be able to protect herself. She has her own dagger. They also do stuff to help people like that are being attacked by Craven or churning, and there's a very interesting stuff with that. But one night she basically kind of sneaks out under disguise because as a maiden, she always wears like a veil. People don't really get to see her. And so she goes out, she has a mask, and she goes out to this bar. I can't remember what it was called. The Red Pearl, and she ends up having a run-in with Hawk, and he is actually a new member of the Rise Guard. He's very swoon-worthy. All the girls love him. He's amazing at what he does, and she's under disguise. They kind of have a romantic thing, but it gets split up, and then that's that. And so things happen. There's a murder in like where she's staying in that kind of palace, and there's a lot going on, and somebody else is going to be brought in to help guard her, and that's going to be Hawk. And so now they're in these close quarters together. So I don't want to go too into detail because it would give a lot away, but there's some vampire, werewolf stuff going on. There's a lot of political stuff. Hawk was a great hero. He's very like funny, smart ass, but he's like sees her as more of a maiden, and they have amazing chemistry together. There's some really good spice in this. So this does leave off on a cliffhanger that I was very into. I ended up listening to the graphic audio of this, and it was really well done. I did love that. So it's a longer book, so I think it's pretty slow in the beginning. The first half is very slow, but the second half really picked up, especially like the last 20% really upped it for me. So I'm intrigued. I'm interested in this series. So I ended up giving this 5 stars. And then 2.5 chilies. So I definitely recommend it if you haven't already read it. I know a lot of people already read this series. So I'm definitely going to continue, but I don't know when I'm going to get to that book because I have too much other stuff to read right now. But definitely enjoyed it. So that is my weekly wrap up. Thank you so much for watching this. As always, I appreciate all your guys' support. If you can, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment, like the video. Always appreciate you guys. All right, I will see you on the next one.